What obstacles are keeping you and your organization from flourishing? Now, that might sound like a little bit of an odd question, maybe even a little bit backwards from the way that you think about it. But as I'll explain in the next couple of videos, I think it's a better way of thinking about our organization and about our own leadership. Now, before we get to the conversation around obstacles, which is really where we're going to spend most of our time, I think it's important to define the word flourishing, because flourishing, I think, means different things to different people. Now, most of the clients that I work with, I would call mission-minded executives. They're leaders who care about purpose, people, and profits. If that's not you, if you don't resonate with that and feel like that's really your heart, then that's fine. But this videos and the ones that come after are probably not for you. Now, in my work with mission-minded executives, I find that they really want three things. And flourishing is really comprised for them with these three words: growth, satisfaction, and legacy. Now let's unpack those one at a time. Growth. Most leaders, most executives are not happy if their organization isn't growing. And we can argue how fast it needs to grow, but if it is flat or declining, the leader is not okay. and that kind of growth puts a lot of pressure on executives to help that organization, to help the company that they lead grow. Now, what I find interesting is that most of us think it is our job to make the organization grow. But I would suggest that that might actually be backwards from the way the world really works. Now, let's think about something like a garden. I do not have a green thumb, but every spring, my backyard explodes in vegetation, right? It's not me, I'm not doing it, but somehow it automatically seems to grow, despite sometimes my best efforts to the contrary. And as I look at that, it reminds me, or maybe it suggests to me, that growth isn't something that I can create. Maybe growth is something that happens naturally, and that my contributions here are more about removing the things that are in the way. Right? Think about it. If there's a part of your yard that doesn't grow, I've got a couple of those, it's because something's in the way, right? It's not getting sunlight, it's not getting water, maybe the soil's bad, but you don't actually have to do anything to make things grow in the right spots. You just have to get the obstacles out of the way. I think about water as maybe a better example. You don't have to encourage, incentivize, manage water to flow downhill, right? That's just what it does. And if you see water that's not moving downhill, well, then there's something in the way, right? It's pretty simple. What if organizations actually work the same way? What if our job as leaders is not to make the organization grow, but rather our job is just to get the things out of the way that are keeping it from growing? Subtle, but I think an important distinction. So the first part of flourishing for any executive, I believe, is growth. The second part is what I would call satisfaction. You can call that something different. But once an organization is growing, most executives start looking at themselves and saying, am I happy? Do I enjoy what I'm doing here? In my experience, they won't do that inner reflection if the organization's not doing well, right? If they're not hitting their revenue numbers, they're not hitting their profit numbers, they're not going to do a whole lot of reflection. But if they are, the second question begins to kind of percolate within them, which is this really what I want to be doing with my life? Do I really enjoy this? Am I contributing the best that I have to offer? Most executives will do whatever it takes to grow, but once it's growing, they want to contribute the best that they have to offer. And I call this satisfaction. It's kind of sad how many executives really hate their jobs. Maybe they've inherited the company, maybe they didn't understand what they were getting into, or maybe the circumstances have changed so that what they originally thought they were going to be doing isn't what they're doing anymore. But it's really a sad thing for leaders to feel stuck in a job that doesn't really leverage the best that they have to contribute. And so when we think about flourishing for a mission-minded executive, first we need growth, But once we have growth, the next best question, the next most important thing to executives is really around satisfaction. Am I contributing the best that I have to offer? Now, in rare cases, I've worked with clients who have growth, their company's growing, they have satisfaction, they feel like they get to do what they're best at on a regular basis. And in the case where an executive has those two things, the third question starts to arise. And that third question I call legacy. It really becomes a question of, am I making the world a better place, right? I'm making money, I'm doing what I do well, but why, right? What am I going to leave behind? What is my legacy going to be? What are people going to say about me when I'm not here anymore? Maybe it's something they want to pass on to their children. Maybe it's a healthy company culture they want to leave for their employees. But once those first two pieces are in place, that third piece, really around legacy and reputation, starts to emerge in the heart of a leader. And those three together, I would say, really comprise flourishing for a mission-minded executive. They want growth, they want satisfaction, and they want legacy. And I see these pretty universally, right? People use different words to describe them, that's fine. But conceptually, I think these are the three things that most leaders really want. So here's the interesting question. We all want this, and yet very few of us actually experience it. Why? Why is something that every leader wants so hard to find? I would argue that it's because most of us think about it backwards. Most of us think we have to go make or create growth, satisfaction, and legacy. But I think it's actually the other way around. I think growth, satisfaction, and legacy are very natural outcomes. But our job as leaders is to find those obstacles that are in the way and remove them. So what about you? As you think about growth, satisfaction, and legacy, where are you stuck right now? Which one do you feel most acutely? Are you struggling to grow your organization? Are you struggling with your satisfaction in your role? Or are you struggling with the big picture questions of the legacy you're going to leave when you're gone? Once you find the area where you're stuck, I think it's important to start asking, what are the obstacles that might be in the way? And in the next couple of videos, I'll start unpacking what some of those obstacles are and how we can overcome them.